Hello, my name is Jack Potter. I'm one of the partners at Wild Capital. I'm here today just to talk through how a biodiversity unit allocation is made on the biodiversity register. We've had quite a few inquiries from local authorities, from developers, from ecologists, just asking actually what happens, what to expect. I think there seems to be a little bit of confusion about actually what the process is. So I thought I'd just run through an example here for a live allocation so I can just walk through the process of what's expected. So prior to this allocation being made, we will need two things, ideally three. One of them is a decision notice. So you cannot have an allocation on the biodiversity register without a decision notice. It is a requirement to make that allocation. So we need that, and some developers are trying to get out of the pre-commencement condition by having allocations up front, but it's not possible to do that. So you can take a reservation prior to the decision being made, and then actually drawing them down and making the allocation as soon as the decision lands. But you can't do that to get out of the pre-commencement condition, as far as I'm aware. So we need that to make the allocation. So that's number one. Number two is the metric. Now we probably already have the metric because if we've provided a quote and we've signed an allocation agreement with the developer, we will have quoted based on the metric. We always require the metric because we want to see for ourselves what the trading rules are and understand what we need to quote for. So they're the two essential things that we need. The third thing, which is a nice to have, is the biodiversity gain plan. Now that is the document. It's a standard government template, which is the requirement to discharge the condition, and we will normally fill that out for you. Some developers, ecologists, will fill it out themselves, but that's part of our sort of planning pack that we offer as part of our service. So part 7 of that is what we will fill out. The rest of it is needed to be filled out by the developer, which is relating to the development details and the on-site elements of the planning application. So, but yeah, before we get to the allocation, we will have received the metric. We will have checked our stock levels to make sure that we've got capacity to deliver the units for that development. We'll have quoted for it, that quote will have been accepted, and we will have signed an allocation agreement. So all of that happens prior to this. This is at the point where money has been paid, agreements have been signed, and we've been notified that those units are needed to be allocated. So this example that I'm going to give here is a demolition and rebuild of one dwelling in Essex. It's a fractional unit requirement. It's 0.13 units. Of any habitat, as the trading rules don't specify any particular habitats. In this instance, we're going to be allocating mixed scrub, and that's going to be from our site Wild Teas, which attracts a 0.5 spatial risk multiplier. The cost to this developer, obviously it's a single dwelling, it's a small site, it's 0.13 units. We are going to be charging around about £4,000 for that site. Many other developers are less than that for small sites like this. We are allocating for 0.01 units. So there is no minimum for us. We apply an administration charge to cover administration when those units get down to that sort of level. So just to cover our costs of making the allocation. So this particular example, it was paid for and signed yesterday, and obviously we're making the allocation today. So I'll just drag across the developer's metric. So here we've got the developer's metric, and obviously the 10% again is already in there because we have already filled out the offsite details. But if I delete those, you can see what the development impact is. So they've got a deficit of 0.13 units. That's what we will look for when we're quoting. We'll look at the trading rules. There's no hedgerows or rivers required. Look at this. There's only low distinctiveness habitats impacted. So that means that it can be mitigated for basically anything with any habitat. And then the 10% on top again can be mitigated with anything. So what we need to do is we will need to populate the offsite tabs for the metric. So this will directly correlate with our metric, which is actually uploaded to the biodiversity register. So this will directly correlate with that. You'll see that we actually go to quite a high level of accuracy with our hectare allocations. That's because the metric actually only goes to 2 decimal places, which is what you can see, but actually behind that is to a much higher resolution. So there is a chance that if 0.13 is shown on the metric, it could actually be 0.134, and therefore allocating just 0.13 wouldn't be sufficient to make the metric go green and show the 10%. Obviously, conversely, it could be slightly less than 0.13, and it would be over allocating, which isn't a problem. That's obviously perfectly fine. But we do actually copy the requirements directly from the metric to sort of input them into our into our sort of yield calculator, so we know exactly the area we need to meet the requirements. So because this is a 0.5 multiplier, so this is compensation outside of the local authority or national character area, and then we also have to populate these habitat reference numbers. The offsite reference number is our biodiversity gain site. That's what BGS stands for. That is specific to the habitat bank, which is registered on the register. You can't have one of those reference numbers if you don't have it registered on the register. And these habitat reference numbers is what Natural England give back to you, which is specific to a line of data. So those need to go in as well, otherwise it doesn't calculate. So in this instance, we're actually creating scrub. So the cropland habitat is effectively destroyed. We're creating mixed scrub on top of that, which is a medium distinctiveness habitat. So the requirements are low distinctiveness or better. We're providing better, which is medium. This is going to be in good condition, and it's in an ecologically desirable location. There is no local nature recovery strategy in this area, so that's still acceptable at the moment, but that may need to change when a local nature recovery strategy is put in place, whether that's high or low. Again, spatial risk multiplier needs to be the 0.05, not local. And again, we need to fill out these habitat reference numbers and offsite reference numbers. So once those few things are done, we can go back to the headline results. What developers will want to check for: does that turn green? Does it say 10% or more? And in this instance, it does. And also the trading rules are satisfied. So that will pass the test when it comes to making the allocation on the register, and it should meet the requirements of the local authority. So I'm just going to save that. The next thing we do is we go to our login on the biodiversity register. This is specific to Wild Teas, which is the site where we're making this allocation from. So we record offsite gain units, offsite gains. We're recording it for a new development. So these are all the details we need to fill in to make the allocation, submit it. So to start with, are we acting on behalf of a client? No, we're not. We're acting on behalf of ourselves. Are we the landowner or leaseholder? Yes, we are. We are the landowner. We generally buy the land ourselves, so we can be the decision maker and commit our land for perpetuity. It's our USP. So that's yes for that. Are we part of an organisation? Yes, we are. We confirm those are correct. Next, this is the gain site, biodiversity gain site registration number specific for this biodiversity gain site. So I've already got that where I've previously entered it in. And then this is where we need to upload the metric. So the metric needs to have those off-site elements which I previously shown with the habitat reference and the gain site reference number. So I'm just going to need to close it down because it won't let me upload it. So that's for this development site. And then what happens, it will extract the relevant details from that metric, and we'll have to confirm those details are correct. Yes, that's the correct metric. So we can see here that habitat type and condition is 0.03 hectares. So save and continue because that's correct. And then we need to talk about the development. So I'm going to call this Hello Colchester, if I can spell. And it's in Colchester Planning Authority, and the planning reference number, which is on the decision notice. And then we need to upload the decision notice itself. So select that. Oh. If it works this time. So is that the correct document? Yes, it is. Save and continue. And then the final step is just checking the answers are correct. So yeah, obviously it does extract the exact details. So we've gone to obviously a very high level of accuracy for what we need. At this point, what happens is when you press submit, we can't see what we've allocated. Hopefully this will change in the future and we'll be able to actually go into an allocation and see what's currently being processed. But at the moment we can't do that. We don't get an email confirming the details of what we've allocated either. We just get a confirmation email with a reference number that an allocation has been made. So in terms of evidence to provide to the developers, at the moment we don't actually really have anything. So for us, at the moment, we are actually taking a screenshot of this just here. So I'm actually going to have to do that on my phone because I'm using the screenshot. I'm using the snipping tool on my desktop to actually record this video. So I know it's probably not ideal, but just taking a picture of my phone. And then we can prove to the developer that allocations were made. So we confirm that we agree with the terms and conditions and that everything is correct. So submit. So that's when we get our unique reference number. We've got to pay that registration fee, that application fee, and it's only when we've paid that the allocation can be made. We normally, as part of this process, we normally make that payment immediately so it doesn't get missed, and so the clock starts ticking on Natural England to make that allocation. So in terms of what else we provide for the developer, so we provide what we call a planning pack. So that will include 4 things. It will be the metric, which we've used to upload to the register, and that will have the offsite details on, which can be submitted to discharge the recommencement condition. We also issue an allocation notice. Now, this is like a second type of allocation to the allocation on the register, and it's a mechanism in our legal agreements. So allocating on the register is what's needed for the planning process, but actually through the legal agreement with the responsible body or local authority, an allocation notice is actually a trigger that habitat needs to be implemented then within 12 months of making that allocation. We have an obligation to notify the planning authority or the responsible body that allocations have been made, so they can keep track of how much has been allocated, of what types of habitats and what's remaining. So that's almost a receipt that developers receive from us. So the allocation notice is the second thing. We will actually copy that that summary from the allocation on the register into that allocation notice, so the two marry. The other thing that's needed is a biodiversity game plan. Now, ideally, we'd receive a biodiversity game plan from the developer that's already been filled in for everything else except Section 7. Section 7 is the off-site details. If we haven't received a biodiversity game plan, which has been pre-populated by the developer, then we will just download one from the .gov website, which is a standard template, fill out Section 7 for them, and then that'll be the third thing that we'll issue. Just to show you what that looks like, this is the decision notice. This is the biodiversity game plan. It's a standard document. There's lots of bits to fill in, which are relating to the on-site requirements and the development details. And then Section 7, like I said, is the off-site habitat enhancements. So here I've obviously filled in all this for them. The number of units, the percentage gain, which is slightly meaningless in an off-site scenario where everything's a gain. So we will fill that out for them. This is what the allocation notice looks like. So I blocked it out here for personal information. But yeah, it's a very simple document. It's just a couple of pages just saying, what units are being allocated from where. This is the biodiversity game site register number, the development details, and the scheme we're allocating from. We actually have parcel activation, so we'll activate parcels that we're allocating from. So that's a slight difference here than maybe some of our other sites. And it's Harry Ferguson Holdings Limited, which is the responsible body in this instance. So we will sign that, issue that to the client, to the developer, and to the responsible body in this instance. We have an updated capacity report to make sure that the responsible body knows that we're not over allocating and we're only allocating what's been activated. We give a screenshot of the summary for the metric for the development, and then the last thing is we insert that allocation summary, which I took a picture on my phone in this case. So that's the allocation notice, and then the fourth thing that we will send is copy of the conservation covenant or Section 106 as part of our planning pack. So that's it. So that's what you should expect from Wild Capital, and thanks for listening.